I left off with the layouts already figured out here. We have a section with chart A, B, C, and D. We have an expert section that is just one basically section that spans the entire width. Remember, our width was set at 1000. Let's go back, and I want to show you how to add multiple charts or sections in this one column. So I'm in, if you look at my code, in this section right here where it says orientation columns. So basically the column orientation means we're going to focus on column after column after column as I type columns in, but if I add those hashtags to create regions, it'll add them as rows under that column. Let me explain here by showing you the code. So see where it says column right here with the 2 hashtags? Well, I go from 2 and then I have 3 here where chart A is. So it's indented 1 level up. So it says take this column that I just created, that's the width of 500, and create one chart with 3 hashtags. What I can do is I can just copy and paste this. And I'll do that twice. Let's call it A2 and A3, and I'll show you what I mean. So it goes from 2 hashtags to 3, and then 3 again, and 3 again. So these 3, chart A, A2, and A3, are all aligned in new rows under this column. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? So then I get to a new column, which in this way I use a different format, but it means the same thing. Lines 35 and 36 together does the same thing as line 15 here, except the span is different. The span is 250. Let's save that, and I'll show you that those graphs were created, or those regions. We have no graphs. So if I refresh it, we have chart A, A2, and A3 going down. Now we've done that with column 2. We're going to call this column 2. We have chart B and C in the same column. So you can see that pattern still. Look where the column starts. Consider that the 2 hashtags. And now we have 3 hashtags, 3 hashtags. That's why we have chart B and C under the same column. You see the pattern. Now on chart D, we have a new column. Oh, I'm sorry, we already did chart D. Now under here, we have 1 hashtag. So we're actually making a new page, and that's where we get the expert and start. So expert and start is because it's got 1 hashtag, expert, and then I created 1 column with the width of 1000, but I plan on not putting any other rows or columns in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that out completely. You should probably do the same so you can follow along. Okay, it's not going to make any changes aesthetically, but I just want to delete that out because I'm not planning on putting columns in there. I want it to span the entire width without having a column. Okay, now we have that figured out. Let's say that we wanted to make these charts bigger and we want to fit them in the same area. One thing we can do is we can make tabs within this column instead of new rows. Nothing beats an example, so let's go ahead and go back up to where that column starts. See where it says column data width? Well, another parameter you can put in there is put a comma and do dot tab set. Now, when I hit Control S on this and I re-render this, I think you're going to like this feature. It's real simple and it makes your layout a lot cleaner looking. Refresh. Now you see I have chart A region, chart A2, chart A3. Now granted there's nothing in those regions, but look how nice and neat that is organized. And then we still have our chart B, C, and D, and our expert looks the same as it did. Let's go back and now let's start filling some of this stuff in. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create the graphs and plots before we actually put them in our layouts. And normally you want to separate that out from your actual aesthetics and your layout. Like this is how we're laying out our report. Well, let's build the report using an actual R script. So go to File, New File, R script, and we're going to call this, let's save it right off the bat, Control S, and we're going to call this the ETL process for report. Whatever you want to call it, ETL process report, and it's under that same directory as your project. Click Save. All right, so we're going to use a ggplot library ggplot2, and we're going to, if you don't have that installed, you would click on Packages, Install, and then just type in ggplot2 and click on Install. All right, and then it should install no problem. What that's going to do is going to allow us to create some basic plots. Now, this is not a lesson on how to create all kinds of fancy plots with a ggplot. This is to get you started. So let's create some very basic plots that you can then modify to your needs. So I don't expect you to understand all of the code completely, but I expect you to be able to modify this code to meet your needs if you had your own CSV file imported. Okay. So speaking of that, to bring in some fake data, we're going to use mtcars. It's a data set that comes with RStudio and R. So let's say my data, and we're going to assign to my data the mtcars data. So Command Enter on that. And we have on the right hand side my data. It's got 32 observations with 11 variables. And here is the data here when I click on it. And we didn't load that library, so let's just go ahead and do that. I did Command Enter on line 1. Now the library ggplot has been loaded. Let me show you how to plot some of this data. So we're going to use ggplot, and then inside here we want to put our data. Our data is my data. And what I want to use is an aesthetic. I want to use an X and Y axis. So I'm going to use the aesthetic. So in AES, the function, I'm going to bring in two parameters, and the parameter is going to be X. I'm going to say X is equal to, and look at my features list here. I have miles per gallon, cylinders. What do I want along the X axis? I'm going to put weight, WT. And on the Y axis, I'm going to put QSEC, which is the quarter mile, how many seconds for a quarter mile. So WT and QSEC. Let's go back here. X is equal to WT along the X axis, comma, my aesthetic for Y is going to be QSEC. Okay, now that's still not going to do anything, but if I actually do Command Enter on here, you'll see my plot area here is just a blank canvas. Let's add a geometry to this. So we're going to put the plus sign there, and we're going to add geom underscore point, and that's it. Nice and simple. Command Enter on that, and WS was not found. Oh, because it's WT. Wait, let's try this again. And we have an actual plot over here on the right hand side at the bottom, but we didn't assign it any variable. We didn't save this plot. We simply displayed it. So let's save that as, we'll call it chart A, and we'll assign this plot to chart A. Command Enter. Okay, now really, if you did this without displaying it first, you wouldn't see it at all. We only see it because it saves the history here. Hit that little brush here and you can delete the history of your plots. Now if I rerun line 5, you won't see it, but it is stored in data. You can see in the environment 32 chart A, list of 9. If I wanted to actually see it, I can just type in chart A again, Command Enter, and it'll plot again. But we're not interested in doing that. We're interested in using chart A. I'm going to save this, Control S. Over here where chart A belongs. So down here, chart A, let's just type in chart A. And then I can run this. There it is right there. I'm going to save it, Control S or Command S. And let's run that R Markdown again. R Markdown render. And the name of our file is report.rmd, whatever it is. And now we should see this chart appear magically in our area that we set it in, chart A. Chart A2 has nothing in there, and so forth and so forth. So you get the idea. Once you get good, you can look up how to do different plots, bar plots, histograms, things like that. You can start plugging away and putting stuff in there. Let's do one more chart just to give you a little bit of feel for that, a little bit more feel. Go back to your ETL process report. Let's create chart B. Oh, let's create chart A2. Chart A2, and let's assign that to a plot. It's going to be the same data, my data. And this time for our x-axis, we'll use x equals, I don't know, maybe we'll do miles per gallon, and y is equal to, let's take a look at the data one more time. So maybe we can do a miles per gallon on the x-axis and I don't know, horsepower on the y-axis. We're going to add a scatter plot, the geom point. Command Enter. Now let's see what it looks like. We can actually type it in here, chart A2. I always do that, so it did plot it, and here we go. It's not a, you know, it could be meaningful for somebody that wants to know the miles per gallon to horsepower, right? So whatever that means, we're going to delete that from here, and we're going to put chart A2 where it belongs, just to get you the idea. So chart A2, let's just plug in. chart A2. Again, let's follow these steps. Control S, save it. Let's re-render this. Hit the up button a couple times. And here we go. It's being rendered. Refresh, and chart A2. There it is. See, there's two different charts. Okay, chart's not the only thing you can do with this. Let's play with some other stuff real quick just to show you. Let's go and fill in chart B, and we're not going to call it chart B. We're going to call it a value box. So let's change the name of that. Chart B is not chart B. It's going to be a value box. A value box is just an indicator that gives you a number, but it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. All it is just type in the word value and then box and then open parenthesis, and you can put a number in there. So I could put the number in 32, 23, whatever, hit this button here. Now it doesn't show inside of your RMD file, but hit Command S and let's run that again. I know there's a lot of repeating here, but I want to really drill this down. So let's render, come back, refresh, and see that 23, and it colored it blue, and it has value box down there. So that's the idea, is it's just more aesthetically pleasing. So you might have a bunch of different values that you want to show. You know, you've served 23 customers this hour. You've done 23 extra whatever. There it is, right? Now we can put an icon there to make it a little bit more pretty. There's a few icons you can use. So if you hit the comma, you can add a parameter. That's called icon equals, and then FA-pencil is one of them. You might have to Google this to look up other icons, and you might even be able to do your own modified icons that you create. But that's a little bit beyond the scope of this. So the value box, just look up value box R icon options, something like that. Hit the play button. I'm going to save it again, and let's go ahead and run that. There we go. Refresh. I'm trying to go quickly through this so you can skip to the part that you want to really get done. So there's your pencil icon. Chart C, we're going to put a gauge. A gauge. What's a gauge? Well, you'll see. Let's just put it in there. Gauge is you put a number in there, say 23, and then you have a minimum and a maximum. Min equals 0, max equals 100. Now if I run this, there's our gauge. I'm not going to render it yet because I want to show you some more things beforehand. So that's what a gauge is. But how did it know to turn green, right? So you have a min and max, so you can adjust this any way you want. You can have a minimum start at 20, and it'll adjust accordingly. 20 to 100 is 23, and it knows the ratios. So it's pretty good. Let's start at 0 again. But what I want to do is I want to set the colors myself. So let's do comma, and then we're going to do gauge sectors with a capital S, and you can see up here it says success, danger, and warning. So success equals, and we're going to put in a set of numbers. We're going to say success is equal to 90 to 100, comma, warning is equal to, and we'll say that is equal to 50 to 89. And then finally, we'll do danger is equal to 0 to 49. Makes sense? And this is just arbitrary. So we do that, and we see we're in the red because 23 is in the danger zone. Let's do 53 just to see, or 53. Run it again, and it turned yellow. And of course, finally, if we were at 99, it should be green. See how that works? Now, inside of here where I put 99 and up here in the value box where I put 23, you can put actual variables in there. So your variables that are over here, you can add in there, or you can actually create them on the fly if you'd want. Now, again, this is a very, very introductory, not really going to teach you a whole lot about R, but how to use flexdashboards. So I'm assuming you know some R, or you can pick it up rather quickly. So my data has 32 observations. Let's add that to the value box. So we want a 32 in there, but we want to do it using my data. So I'm going to say my data, which is available because it's in my environment. I can use my data as a variable, but my data is a data frame, and this thing takes an actual number. So I want to do the dimensions. I want to figure out what's the dimensions. I know the dimensions are 32 by 11, but I want to do it programmatically. So dimensions of my data. But that's going to give me two numbers, a row and a column. So I want the first of those numbers. I want the row. So I subset it with the brackets, and I say 1. So now if I have this, I have, okay, take my data, which is basically a spreadsheet, a data frame, take the dimensions, which is going to be a 32 by 11, In fact, I can show you down here in the console. I can say dimension my data, and I hit enter here, and it says 32 by 11. See, there's two numbers. I want the first of those two numbers. In fact, you can do that here just to test it out, save you some time if you want. So there's the number 32. Got it? So if I hit play on that, you get 32. Now the caveat is you have to run your script first over here because my data doesn't exist until you run this. All right, so we've got that figured out. And over in the gauge, let's just keep that at 99. I gave you the example of how you can plug in variables in there. Let's do a quick save and take a last look at it. So let's do R markdown render quotes report the RMD file and run it just to make sure we're all on the same page. We got chart A, chart A2, chart A3 is blank. We've got a value box of 32 and a gauge that shows 99. For chart D, let's just throw some narrative in there. So let's go down to chart D and let's just type in, because this is not our code because I don't have an R chunk in there. The R chunk again is the backticks, this little R situation here you have. All right, so in the chart D, we're going to put just a narrative. Hello, this is my report. By the way, BT dubs, I can change colors. And I can say, I'm HTML now. Font, color equals red. Hello, red font. And close that out. Let's see if this works. Command S. So I embedded some HTML in there, which will give you a lot of leverage and leeway to customize. Let's go back and see if I did that correctly. And we have some red text over here in chart D. Very powerful. You can change the fonts. You can do a lot of HTML, but not all. But that's just one more thing. Finally, let's get to the last thing. We have a pretty full dashboard here with multiple charts. Now let's go to expert and say, what do I want to fill that in with? Well, maybe I want the actual data, the underlying data. So let's go back and we're going to do something in expert. In the R, we're going to add a data table. So to do that, I'm going to add up here at the very top where it says library flex dashboard. Let's add a library DT, which is data table. You can do command enter or you can run the whole thing again. It doesn't matter. And if DT is not installed, remember packages install DT, and then you should have that available. No problem. Okay, DT is going to give us the ability to add a data table. Data tables are pretty cool. Let's start off with a very simple one, just called data table, and we're going to add in our data, which is my data, and that's it. I'll hit the little button here. You can see what it looks like right here. You see how when I move the mouse, it highlights that row. That's a pretty awesome feature. I have a entry list here. I can show 25, I can show 10, and all of these are customizable, and I can do a search. So it's very powerful, and as you can see down here, I'm paginated, whatever it's called, paginated. Anyways, you can go to different pages. Okay, so one thing that's really important to a lot of people that are not used to other means besides like Excel is the ability to export the data. So let's see if we can figure out how to do that, and we're gonna do that in just a moment. Let's render this. Let's save it, Command S, and render this one more time, just to show you what it looks like. So I want to add just export buttons, and then we are finished. We have a full-on dashboard, and it's customizable to your needs. I will show you exactly one more thing afterwards too, now that I think of it. So let's add buttons to this, and this could get a little complicated. Let's go to the internet. So I'm going to do a Google search, and we're going to type in DTR for data table and R language, and I'm going to say buttons. And this very first one here is the one I'm going to pick. Hopefully you can find it using Google as well. And what I have here is an example. See how it says copy and print and search, all this. And so there's other examples too. There's a download button. So there's all kinds of things you can do. Let's just copy where it says data table, because that's what we're actually using. We're going to copy this whole section. We're going to go back, and we know our data is called my data. So Control V on that. Change the iris2 data set to my data, right? So now if we run this, we should see at least those buttons. We have print and copy. Pretty cool. Let's add CSV. I know you can add CSV, comma, quote, CSV, quote. Run this again, and now you have the ability to export as CSV. And there are other options, so I advise you to go explore the data table parameters. Just to break this down for a second, one of the parameters is an extensions. So we have an extensions equal to buttons, and then we have an options list. And the options list is where a lot of things are going to be at. So the data table takes a parameter called options, but inside of options, you can have a list of options. And inside of that list, we have this thing called BFR tip and buttons. So this corresponds to the buttons extension. So they're all working together, and we can have a list of buttons basically. And what other buttons are in there, I'm not sure, but you can look those up. Let's render this one last time, just to make sure that the buttons show up on the HTML page. Outputs created. Go back and refresh, expert, and there are our buttons. If I click on CSV like I just did, I can open this up, and there it is. It is a CSV file, comma separated file it created for us. So that'll please a lot of the people that don't want to work within this area. Finally, just as a bonus, you don't probably want to work with empty cars. You want to work with your own data set. So let's go ahead and do that instead. Okay. So in the ETL process report.r that we created, I said my data is equal to empty cars. Let's comment that out because we don't want that. We want to use our own data, right? Okay. So let's do my data is equal to, we're going to do read underscore CSV. Actually, let's keep this very simple. Read.csv. And underscore is using a different library called tidyverse. We'll get into that in other lessons elsewhere. Read.csv, and then you open parenthesis, and you just want to put in the location of your file or the URL of the CSV file. Now, if you're on a Windows computer, for your path, you don't want to use backslashes like you don't want to do C drive / your path. You can do C drive / user / whatever it is, desktop, all the way to your actual CSV file. And on a Mac, you would use the / instead, / user / desktop / mydata.csv. I'm going to show you an example right now, but I wanted to make that crystal clear. If you're on Windows, it's 2 backspaces or /, but not 1 backslash. I think you got that idea. Let's just grab, I do have an Excel file here. Let's just, I don't even know where I saved it. Let's just grab one from the internet so I can show you that. Go to Google and just say example CSV file. Find any example you want, CSV files, -people, cool. Let's say biostats.csv. See, it's right here. Copy this, Command C, and then let's go back over to here and we do Command V. Now it's going to read in that CSV file from the internet and it's going to store it into my data. However, now our chart A and our chart A2 will be different. So let's go ahead and do that anyways. Let's do Command Enter on my data. We have it. So it's 18 observations of 5 variables. Now our chart A and chart A2 are not going to make any sense because there's no WT or QSEC, I don't think. Let's check it. My data. Okay, we have name, sex, age, height, etc. Let's do age versus height for the first chart, and then, yeah, that'll work perfectly. So X equals age, and then the Y equals to the height. You can type in my data $, just to get the actual, so the actual name of the feature is height ... in . So height in inches basically. So let's go ahead and Command Enter on that. And now on the other one, we will do, let's do age versus weight. So age for the X, and we'll do weight. And since I don't know what the actual variable name is, I'm going to do the my data thing again. My data, WEI, weight, boom. All right, I'm going to save that. I'm going to come back over to the dashboard, which I didn't change anything on this dashboard, right? I'm going to just click on this run button up top, and I'm going to say run all. Hopefully it runs. Oop, got an error right off the bat. There's age. I must have used age somewhere here. Oh, in chart A, let's go back. I don't think I ever, there's no age. Let's try this. My data, Oh, it's capital A. So age, that should work. So let's rerun all of this. In fact, you can just click on run and it'll run the whole script. Or actually, highlight the whole thing, click on run. It'll run the whole script. Come back over to the dashboard, run all. And that's that. And let's render it. Now, I didn't save it, so let's just do a test run and see if it actually matters. We'll know right off the bat because we're no longer doing Q second wait. When I hit this refresh button, let's see what happens. All right, we got age and height. There we go. And over here we have age and weight. There's your plot. Now these were just static numbers, except for the value box was actually the dimension, the 18 observations. Here's our chart D and our data right here. And I can download it, print it, copy it. I can search for certain things. I want to search for Gwen. There's Gwen right here. That's it. Modify this to your needs. Play with it. There's a lot to learn about R, but anybody that's a business analyst or anybody interested in trying to just display things in a dashboard can use this with very little programming effort whatsoever. So I hope that you can modify this and create your own dashboards.